It's time for Reason.
That's the priorities our government has set. We just talked about the state budget and where the money's going and how much taxes they want to increase on us. Now we're looking at the federal level and looking at a federal budget reform on what we can do to get our budget under control. And instead of worrying about where the money's going and what our tax rate's going to look like and what our spending's going to look like, we're too concerned with giving amnesty to illegal aliens. Notice the priority of the progressives.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
What a beautiful morning. Good morning to you. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting out of the big city of Wichita, Kansas, in the center of the country, broadcasting all across the Mid-American Network, along with KGPT-TV, the flagship radio station of the Big Talker KQAM in Wichita, Kansas. Welcome aboard. Good Wednesday morning to you. This is the Voice of Reason. I am Andy Hoosier. It is an honor to have you along this morning as we start off a brand new day. It is hump day. It's the middle of the week. It is the day before the pre-Friday celebration, which is why we need to have a great one today. The show that teaches you the most basic common sense and reason, like not to eat Tide Pods throughout the day. I think that we can go along with that. Welcome into it. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, lots to get to today. I'm really excited about the show as more news finally, some legislative news is coming out of Topeka on some of the bills being presented, on some of the topics they're discussing, on some of the hard-hitting issues that they're concerned about, and whether it's a good idea to be concerned about those issues or not be concerned about those issues. That's what it's all about, and that's what we need to discuss today. So I want to get your thoughts. I want to get your calls. I want you to shoot me a message all over social media if you get a chance, on Facebook, on the Voice of Reason page, on the KQAM page, of course, Twitter at Hoosier Reason. You can also email. I've been actually getting a lot of listeners emailing me lately, which is really great because I've actually been throwing out my email address. If you want to shoot me articles, stories, or just your opinion on the show. Andy, you suck! Okay, well, thank you. Constructive criticism is what it's all about. You can shoot it Andy at KQAMradio.com if you'd like to do so and reach out that way as well. Let me ask you a question. And I always love using the analogies to be able to set this up, and I've been thinking about this. Now that we're going into the big game, the big football game, if you know what I mean. I think it's trademarked, and I can't necessarily say it that way. Okay, well, the Super Bowl, I don't have any advertising things attached to it, so I think I'm okay. But the big football game, you know what I'm talking about. And I've been thinking about it, and I haven't watched a single NFL game all year long. And I doubt that I will watch the Super Bowl just because of the fact that, it's NFL. And until they not only stop protesting, but they apologize for the protesting, they admit that the protesting was really, really stupid, that they are completely oblivious to history of the United States, and that, they will never do something like this again, then I probably won't watch it. And I'm not expecting to get that type of response. or an apology of that sort. So I don't know if I'm going to watch it or not. But I was thinking about football in general because I do like the sport. And this really puts it into perspective because I've heard this from numerous different states now, including Oklahoma, where we broadcast into here for the first hour. If you're a quarterback, or let's say this, if you have a quarterback that cannot complete a pass. I know the big news lately has been that Tom Brady had stitches on his hand. Whether he was going to do very well in the last game or not, it was going to be up in the air. And, the quarterback's kind of the heart and soul of the team to be able to rally them, to strategize and set the plays, to be able to move the team forward on a regular basis, right? Everybody plays their part, and the quarterback is kind of the one that heads all of it up and orchestrates all of it on the field, right? If you have a quarterback that does not know how to make the plays, they practice and they practice and they practice, and they just can't memorize the routes of the wide receivers to be able to go out and catch a ball. If they cannot throw the ball with that pinpoint precision that they need to in order for them to be successful, in order for them to get it to their wide receiver while they're also being covered at the same time, if they just can't complete the pass, if you have a quarterback that is absolutely horrendous, do you blame the team owner for that? Or do you blame maybe the coach because they're not training him right? Or do you blame the quarterback themselves? Who do you blame for the fact that you have a quarterback that cannot do their job that they were hired to do so? Yesterday we talked about the appropriated responsibilities of certain individuals when you give them that right. And that's, we were talking about it, is the separation of powers and the constitutionality of the state powers versus the federal government. and the responsibility of what each role of not only either federal government or state government is responsible for, but then the three branches within government at those levels, either the state or the federal government. But let's take it to another level. If you have a quarterback that does not know how to do his job, do you blame the team owner for that? I guess all in all, the team owners who sank the money in to invest into that quarterback in order to do the job that they like to see on the field. If you go to the bank and you go up to the teller line and the teller greets you and you have your check to deposit your check and you want to put it into the bank and they end up messing up the deposit, a very simple transaction. I used to be I used to be a banker, a universal banker, where you do the teller thing and you do the sales thing at the same time, getting you a credit card, opening up your checking account while you're doing the deposit all at the same time. I get that. Let's say you go into the bank, you go to the teller, you deposit the check, and the teller messes up your transaction. They don't put enough into your account because they typed in the number wrong, and this is a habitual habit for this individual. They don't know how to do their job properly. They don't know how to actually complete your transaction because they're not trained properly. Do you blame the bank CEO that may be in another city? Who do you blame? Maybe it's the local manager. The CEO is the one that eventually signs off and says, yeah, okay, we're going to train this individual to be part of our team and part of our company. With these types of analogies, why, to relate it to what's going on politically today, why do we blame the governor and the state legislatures in any state? Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma. Why do we blame the governor and or the legislators for the lack of teacher salaries? When it comes to education funding, and the reason I bring this up is because there's been more posts, and it's been the big push, especially in social media the last couple of days. And I saw the story. I'm going to play play a little audio clip. It's a news report coming out of Oklahoma's news. I believe it's like Oklahoma News 4. And they reported on this a couple of days ago about teacher salaries, where a teacher has posted a big movement to where her salary has not changed over the last 10 years other than more than $50 a paycheck, which is insane. And this is what they had to say.
It's no secret that the teachers in our state are some of the lowest paid in the country. The Oklahoma Education Association is working with lawmakers this legislative session, hoping to change that.
I work 2 jobs after school, and I have a roommate who shares my house expenses.
Lily Lyon is a Spanish teacher at Moore West Junior High. She says she hasn't gotten a noticeable raise since she moved here from Indiana 10 years ago.
2009, what I brought home. In 2018, what I bring home. And it's like $47 every 2 weeks more. I mean, literally nothing.
That's her net pay. Any other raise, she says, goes straight to the rising insurance costs. She's saying more and more of her former colleagues moved to other states, 2 of who just went to Dallas.
The cost of living there is very comparable, and the one is making $14,000 more a year just by driving 4 or 5 hours down that way.
So she's sending out this letter with her paycheck stubs to lawmakers, begging for help.
But what I'm upset about is our children. Here we are, we need to teach them. This is our future. These are the kids that are going to be my doctor, my fireman.
The Oklahoma Education Association says teachers are way overdue for a pay raise.
It would take $6,000, a $6,000 teacher pay raise right now to just make up the difference of what they've lost over the last 10 years.
And right now it's not on the table. They're hoping lawmakers will hear them this upcoming legislative session.
We have legislation that has been filed for a $10,000 teacher pay raise over the next 3 years.
OEA believes fixing the low income for our teachers will translate directly to children's education.
It's about the kids. Everything that we talk about, whether it's teacher pay or funding to classroom, it has a direct impact on our students' learning.
Lacey Lett, Oklahoma's News 4.
There we are. So that's Oklahoma News 4. They're reporting on that story about the teacher salaries. And it's not an issue just in Oklahoma. It's been the discussion point here in the state of Kansas as well for a very long time. We hear over and over and over, year after year, that we need to increase teacher salaries. And I agree. Let's give them some raises. We haven't seen increases in a long time for teachers. Let's do that. But why do we continue to blame the legislature? Why do we continue to blame the governor? Now, Oklahoma's in a little bit different situation in that sense because they've been in a crisis for a long time, and they have ended up cutting education spending in Oklahoma the last year or two when they've kind of had to consolidate and they've ran out of money. And now they're talking about what to do with tax increases in order to offset and pay some of the debts that they have at the state and be able to expand a little bit. But the state of Kansas, we have not done that. And I think it's time that I kind of give some information again that we've ran over and come across a while ago, but with some of the new listeners and some of the new outlets, we haven't really touched on this. So when we come back, we'll touch on some of the numbers over the last few years and how we have not in any way, shape, or form cut education funding. If you remember the elections that happened just a few months ago, a lot of the candidates for the local school boards, the local school districts, said, well, I want to give the teacher salary pay raises. I want to be able to compensate for this. I want to open up this program again, and I want to start this program again. But we just don't have the money, and we need to advocate for the legislature. It's out of our hands what the legislature gives us for our money, which is true. But at the same time, they give you the allotted money, and then you decide what you're going to do with it at the local school level. And when they give you more and more money every single year, when you have record number cash reserves sitting in the bank at local school districts, and I know a lot of maybe administrators in local school districts may be getting a little uncomfortable all across the state and beyond when we talk about this, but it needs to be said. It needs to be said because you have record number cash reserves, record operational cash reserves, money sitting in the bank at the local school district while we're advocating for more money, while we're saying that we don't have enough money for teacher increases, teacher salary increases. At the same time, then we're hiring on new administrators. We're giving administrators pay raises, and we're focusing on that side of it, the red tape, the paper pushing side, not the time in the classroom. Per pupil spending has gone up. Administrative pay has gone up. Teacher salaries, not so much. We'll talk about this when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason. Happy Wednesday morning to you. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason on the Mid-America Network.
The Voice of Reason. Good Wednesday morning to you. Let's kick this one off the right way. What do you say? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. I'd love to hear from you today. The distractions, the unneeded frustrations, the unneeded misdirected anger and frustrations. I get it. I totally understand. We're angry. We're frustrated at times. We just want to lash out. I get it. But let's do it the proper way, shall we? Let's actually direct our attention and our focus the right way. And to do that, to prove my point, I was actually in a discussion last night on social media. And first off, I have to say, I miss a good, substantial debate. I really do. I miss a good, substantial. I don't remember the last time that I've had a substantial, hearty, challenge me type of debate. I'm a debater. That's what I like to do. I like to argue. Ask my wife. Yeah. I like to argue. I like to disagree. I like to challenge myself. I like to challenge others. And most of the time when you debate with somebody on social media, you give them a piece of information and then they either don't respond to you again or they dismiss it and say, well, you're a nut job, so therefore it can't be credible. And that's how they argue nowadays. And it drives me nuts. I want a substantial, hearty debate. So last night on social media, I had someone try to challenge me. And it was from the Kansas Democratic Party on social media that had posted the page about how teacher salaries in the state of Kansas need to go up 8% to match our surrounding states. And all of the comments on there were, Governor Brownback hates puppy dogs and children. Governor Brownback needs to go. The Republicans are trying to destroy teachers and they hate teachers. So I made the comment, just a very simple comment of, it's the local school boards that actually set the contracts for teachers and what salary they're going to receive. It has nothing to do with the governor or the legislature. Stop blaming them. And as the smart debater that I am, I knew that the response would be, yeah, but they can't set the right contracts or give them the raises unless the legislature actually gives them enough money in order to do so. And I was expecting that. And sure enough, there it came. So then I went into the history of it and said, wait a second, no, we've actually increased our educational spending at least 1% to 2% every single year for the past 10 years. And wouldn't it make sense that if we were under litigation over the last 8 to 10 years, with the Montoy case, now with the Gannon case in Kansas, with the Supreme Court telling us that we need more money, that we need a new formula, wouldn't it make sense commonsensically that we wouldn't even be allowed to cut spending. I mean, we would be allowed to, but why would we, in the sense that we're under litigation asking for more money every single year? It doesn't make any sense. Why would we actually cut funding when they're telling us constitutionally that we need more money? We wouldn't do that. Not to mention that I went into the number of operational cash reserves that we have and how we're setting records for the number of spending, setting records for per pupil spending, setting records for operational cash reserves, setting records for this, that, and the other, and how it's not a money issue. It is a money management issue at the local school district level and the local school board that's actually appropriating the money. And then I just nicely went into the fact as well that we did in this last tax increase and this last educational spending increase, we did give teachers a 2.9% salary increase. At the same time, we turned around and gave superintendents a 6% salary increase. Where is the priority here? And I just nicely pointed out again that it was the local school board that's making that decision. Then I had someone ask me something that I have not heard in a long time. Show me the numbers. You could very well be right. I don't necessarily trust you because you're a right-wing conservative talk show host, but show me the numbers because you could be right, but this is not something that I've ever heard. So I started digging through my archives and I found, ladies and gentlemen, my nice little sheets that I have handed to me from numerous different legislators that has been compiled by the state budgetary office and then compiled into nice little spreadsheets and graphs and charts by the Kansas Policy Institute, a nonpartisan organization that just looks at the numbers straight up. And as of the budget year 2014, Kansas spends 49% of its overall general funds and general budget on education. Oklahoma spends 32%. Just an FYI. We spend half of it. Oklahoma spends about 32%. That's insane. We can see from per pupil aid, with capers adjusted, by the way, per pupil spending from 1997 at about $7,000 per student, and going up to the fiscal year of 2015, going up to about $13,000 per student. It's gone up, meaning that we haven't necessarily spent more money in the classroom on the student and on the pupil, but at least the numbers have gone up on how much we spend, and broken down by the number of students that are in the district, it's actually gone up. When it comes to state and federal aid, 1997 and 98 school year, the state was at about $1,800. The federal, $1.8 billion. 1,800, if you want to look at it that way. Federal, $189 million, totaling about $3 billion for aid, all the way up to 2015's estimated year of $6.1 billion. Can you imagine? From 3 to 6, it's gone up astronomically from 1997 to 2015. And that's just 2015. Look at where we're at right now for 2018. And we'll get some more of those numbers later. The numbers have gone up every single year. There's not a single year where it's dipped down for educational spending, for federal aid or for state aid. So that completely right there erases the idea that the state legislature or the governor has anything to do with teacher salaries not going up, because they've given the schools more and more and more money every single year. There's got to be another factor. Where is that factor? What is that factor? We'll talk about that when we come back. But misdirected frustrations, misdirected anger, we got to look at exactly what's going on so we can direct our attention in the right place and we can fix the issue. But blaming Republicans or blaming the governor or blaming the legislatures is not going to fix the issue in any way, shape, or form. Bottom of the hour news coming up here. We'll get to your thoughts and calls when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason.
Doesn't tolerate name calling.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
But if you want to try, call the show at 316-721-8255 right now. This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Oh, yeah. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, hailing from Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker KQAM, broadcasting all across the Mid-America region on the Mid-America Network, along with KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard wherever you may be listening. We appreciate it very much. Good Wednesday morning trying to create local activism, trying to create local conservatism, because when we rise up, it takes very little effort. All we got to do is decide. Right now, I'm going to be an activist. When we think of the mentality activist, we think of the crazy left-wing progressive wanting to stand out there and cheer and hoot and holler with their signs and with their women's march, with whatever they want to do. I don't care. They can yell about how racist Donald Trump is. They can yell about how we need to give amnesty to people that break the law. Doesn't matter whether they're illegal aliens or maybe they murdered somebody. It doesn't really matter. But we need to give them amnesty, right? Because it's not their fault. They're a victim of society. Society has cast their burdens upon them. And that's what they're taught from a very young age. And that's not what we do. That's what we see as an activist. But you and I can be a more extreme, a more productive activist than any of them combined. And all we have to do is have the power of knowledge. The power of knowledge. And once we understand exactly who to go after, once we understand exactly what's really happening, then we can go right to the source. We cannot continue to put Band-Aids over the issues and expect them to heal on their own. Sometimes you have to rip off the Band-Aid, you have to dump the hydrogen peroxide on it, you have to scrub it until all the pus is gone, and then you have to apply new bandages. That's what you have to do in order to fix an issue, right? Your kid scrapes their knee, what do? You just stick the Band-Aid on and say, hey, there you go, kid, go on. You still got stones and dirt all dug up in your skin. No. You scrape them down. You put the hydrogen peroxide on it. Sometimes you got to sew it up a little bit. You got to figure out the deeper root of the issue. And that's what we do here, politically speaking, on The Voice of Reason. Welcome in 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Like the analogies I use at the top of the hour, if you're that quarterback that's terrible, that cannot throw the pass, that cannot organize the team on the field, who do you blame? Do you blame the quarterback? Do you blame the team owner? Do you blame the coach? If you go to that bank and that teller does not know how to actually deposit your check properly and they mess it up every single time that you're into the bank, who do you blame? Do you blame that teller? Do you blame the bank CEO? If you have teachers that are not getting salary increases either in the state of Oklahoma or in Kansas or in Texas or in Nebraska or wherever you may be, if you're not getting salary increases for teachers, who do you blame? Do you go after the governor or the legislature? No. Because they give you the money. It's like the CEO of the bank giving the money to the local branch of the bank and saying, hey, train this individual. I'm investing in this individual. Here's the money. You do it with it as you will. This is, I want to see the end result. But here's the money. Here's the lump sum. Have at it. The team owner. Here it is. I'm going to sign the contract for you for hundreds of millions of dollars as an NFL player for the team, and then the team can decide how they're going to actually hire new individuals and how they're going to hire new football players, how they're going to recruit new individuals. Here's the money. Go at it. The governor and the legislatures do the exact same thing. Here's the lump sum of money for education. We've increased it every single year. Here's the lump sum. Have at it. You're supposed to have more accountability at the local level because anybody should be able to get onto the local school board and say, look, I want to do better for my children. I want to set the school curriculum. I want to be able to help guide the teachers in the way they need to be taught. I want to help the kids and the children learn what they need to be taught so that way they can have a successful career. They can have a successful life because they have been educated properly. That's the local school board. And it's very easy for you to say, you know what? I'm going to change. I'm going to run for the local school board and make a difference. I have budgetary experience. So maybe that's the kind of curriculum we need or the standard that we need, isn't it? To say, you know what, maybe we need to have some kind of qualifications in order for anybody to actually be on a local school board, because if they don't have any budgetary experience, they cannot go in there and say, you know what, we're going to get $2 billion. We're going to have hundreds of $1 millions in our bank for the local school district, and we're going to hire administrators. We're going to hire teachers. We need to get the salaries. We need to get the resources. We need to get our buildings up intact. We need to focus a lot of money on the different athletic fields, the football fields, the baseball fields. We need to improve everything. We need to expand. We need to get buses. We need to hire the bus drivers. We need to do all of this and that, all of our budget in one big lump sum package, and then we need to figure out where all that's going to go. Maybe we need to have a standard or a curriculum for somebody on a local school board and say, unless you have budgetary experience, then you shouldn't be allowed on there. You cannot be just an activist that says, hey, I want to change the world by going out and holding a sign and protesting, and then thinking that you're actually going to be doing good and benefit for our children. That's not what we need. That's not what we should be focused on. We should be focused on someone that's a numbers cruncher that says we have bills to pay and we're going to figure out how to do it. You want salary increases. I want to see standards. I want to see test scores. I want to see graduation rates. I want to see the kids doing well. I want to see an increase in enrollment. I want to get more money in numerous different ways. And then we can look at salary increases. I want to make sure that things are taken care of appropriately. All of that, mind you, has nothing to do with the legislature or the governorship, regardless of what party affiliation's in power. Regardless of whether it's a Republican or a Democrat governor, regardless if it's a majority of Republicans or Democrats in the legislature, it has nothing to do with them. They give you the lump sum of money, and then it's up to them. And as the activists, as we've talked about many times before, the local activism is the easiest in order to change anything. Local activism changes your community, and when your community changes, everybody around you in the other communities see that, and then they start mirroring that. And then all the communities start doing well, and then the state does better as a whole. The country does better as a whole because it's about individualism. It's not about the groupthink. It's not about the commune. It's not about the socialist mentality to where we can trickle down happiness. It doesn't work that way. You have the individual succeeding, the individual flourishing, the individual seeing that opportunity with education, with career, with trade schools, with education, with whatever. With job opportunities, with industry growing. That is where we grow. And that's what we need to focus on. 316-721-8255. Let's go right to the phones, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Andy. It's Ron.
Good morning, Ron. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. On the school issue, you talk about the billions. It's increased. But that's not all the money, because there's a lot of bond obligation out there that's in the billions.
That is true.
And that's not part of the normal. The legislators can't even budget for that. They have to try to figure out how to get more money when they float all these bonds out there.
Absolutely.
And then on top of that, you've got to look at where was the increase to cause the increase of money.
Sure.
Is it in the student population? Is it in the teacher population? Or is it in the administration population? Well, it's in the latter. That has increased about 40-something%.
Sure.
Whereas the overall student population has only increased over the last 20 years about 6%.
Sure. So,
those are the things you have to look for to find out where did the money go.
And there it is.
Plus all the lawsuits, the millionaire we've made of Alan Roop.
That is true. So, you're right. And this is exactly where we need to go. And I appreciate that, Ron, because now we're beginning to peel away the layers of the onion. So now that we know that the governor and the legislature has nothing to do with what's happening at the local school level, they give them the lump sum, then we can focus on what's happening. And you're absolutely right. The fact that 78, and I'm going to keep regurgitating these numbers for the western part of the state, for our new TV affiliate state, listeners, for everybody that's listening that may be new on the radio, no matter where you're at, that 78 school districts, 78 of them, we have 190, 200 school districts in the state.
286.
286. There you go. 78 school districts in the state last year decreased in student enrollment while they increased in the number of administrators. They hired on new administrators when they lost the number of students actually going to those school districts that year. That means that the money being applied is not going to the classroom, nor is going to the teachers. When we had this Wichita school district last year, when they finally got the education funding increase, they gave teachers a 2.9% salary increase. Everybody all happy. Yay, we finally got some more money. We can finally give the teachers more money. Then they turned around and they gave the administrator, the superintendent, a 6% budget salary increase along with an end of the year bonus, which, I mean, it was in their contract and good for her. She negotiated it. That's all smart. That's up to the school board that negotiated that contract with the superintendent. We need to look at where the money's going and who's actually allowing that to happen. And then you bring up the perfect point with the local school bonds. After the local school districts get the money from state aid, from federal aid, then they turn around and they come to you, the taxpayer, in the local district, in the local area, and say, we need a local school bond, and we need to raise your property taxes in order to pay for school building construction, or to build a new Olympic swimming pool in the back of the school, or to build a new tennis complex, or to build a new football field, or to repair some of the buildings in the athletic department, or to enhance the security measures at the school building, which they already have, again, money sitting in the bank as cash reserves for things like that. But they don't like to touch it. So they come back to you for a local school bond. When a school bond runs out after 15 years, do you think it just expires and you get to lower your property tax? No. Then they extend it and create a new one at the same rate. So that way it's like you never lost out on it because it's just always gone. Then they ask you for a new one. And they continuously build upon it, and you'll never see that money again.
Well, Andy, that's not all the money. The local increase in your property taxes, the state is obligated to a percentage, and that percentage could get as high as 70-something%, depending on the school district.
Sure. That's a really good point. Ron, I appreciate it very much. We're about to take a break here, but you bring up the really good point. And talking about, by the way, the local school bonds, I don't know if you remember this last election or not, but there were 8 different local school bond issues on the ballot across the state of Kansas. There were 10 sales tax increases locally, local sales tax increases in communities across the state of Kansas. All 10 local sales tax increases went through and passed. 1 out of the 8 local school bond issues in the state of Kansas actually passed. The other 7 did not. What does that tell you? That tells you that our message that we're trying to get across is working. That tells you that individuals are starting to become curious on why we give and give and give, why this has been an issue for over 10 years now, why they continuously see more of their income tax rate, their sales tax rate, their property tax rates going up for education. Education's been the front and center for 10 years, and we're still having the same problem that we have when the Montoy case started 10 years ago in the state of Kansas. It's getting a little conspicuous, ain't it?
You're listening to the Voice of Reason on the Mid-America Network.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number 1 right here on the Big Talker KQAM, broadcasting all across the Mid-America Network, along with KGPT TV. Welcome aboard to you. Happy Wednesday morning, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. By the way, speaking of the appropriate song like Girls, coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, we're going to have Carrie Lukas. She is the president of Independent Women's Forum, the conservative response to the women's pro-woman outreach, responding to the Women's March that happened over the weekend, and how we're not quite sure what their message actually is and what conservative women have to say about this. So we'll talk with Carrie Lukas coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. That will be a blast. I appreciate that very much, and we'll look forward to that. 721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Speaking of education as a general, now that we know some of the information, we're up and up on some of the facts, now we can address this. And we have opportunities to do so. As we mentioned, we can be the activist in order to start removing individuals from the local school boards. We can start running for school board ourselves. We can start going to the meetings, the school board meetings, and we can start addressing our opinions. We can start demanding certain things. We can start holding them accountable. We always talk about holding the president accountable, holding our legislators accountable, our congressmen and women in Washington, D.C., which is good. And we definitely should do that. But it's more difficult to hold them accountable to their actions as it is to say, hey, you know what? You're a local school board member. This is what we want to see. We do have opportunities to fix some things, though, because now we're going back to statewide curriculums, which is a very, very good thing, in my opinion. We're limiting the amount of regulations and curriculums coming from the federal government. They've been trying for years to try and have the universal curriculum, the nice Department of Education curriculum, the Common Core curriculum. And according to Betsy DeVos, the secretary for the Department of Education, Common Core is dead at the U.S. Department of Education. U.S. Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos gave a far-ranging speech just a couple of days ago in Washington at an American Enterprise Institute conference, Bush-Obama School Reform and the Lessons Learned. She announced the death of Common Core, at least at her federal agency, which means the federal government will not be pushing that curriculum anymore, but it's whether the local districts and the state curriculums will be changing. That gives us the opportunity, you and I, that opportunity, we get to fix that, because no longer is it coming from an obscure agency at the federal level telling us what to do. Now we have the voice again at the statewide level. Common Core at the federal level, at least according to Betsy DeVos, is not being pushed and is dead at the federal level. Score one for, again, President Donald Trump. Score one again for the Republicans reversing even Bush-era policies on education, which was not very good. The No Child Left Behind Act was a terrible disaster. Barack Obama built upon No Child Left Behind and tried to extend government outreach and Common Core curriculums to preschoolers, for crying out loud, trying to give money, quote-unquote, which, of course, you know that every time that the federal government gives you money, there's no strings attached in any way, shape, or form at all. Yeah.
I'm special.
Yeah, if you believe that, then we have some issues and we need to readdress those again. But when they give you money, they like to try and tie the strings to that. And when they start giving it to the preschool level, then they have an agenda for that. And now we're repealing it little by little. We've already seen the Water Act repealed at the Department of the EPA with Sonny Perdue. We've already seen agriculture starting to turn and tie for the good with the Department of Agriculture. Now we're seeing education starting to reverse Common Core. She announced the death of Common Core. We saw two presidents from different political parties and philosophies take two different approaches: federally mandated assessments and federal money given out. Choices in education is not when a student picks a different classroom in the building, or that building uses a voucher or that tax credit scholarship. Choice in education is bigger than that. Those are just mechanisms. It's about freedom to learn differently, freedom to explore, freedom to fail, to learn from failing and to get back up and try again. It's freedom to find the best way to learn and grow, to find the exciting and engaging combination that unlocks individual potential. That, ladies and gentlemen, is school choice. Coming up this weekend is this week is National School Choice Week. That is freedom of education. That is school choice. Not everybody learns the exact same way. Putting their head in that book, having the professor or the teacher tell them exactly what to regurgitate, taking a test and then trying to regurgitate that information, that is not school choice. That is not freedom of education, and Common Core will be dead. In between us holding our local school boards accountable for the budgetary issues, for us focusing money back into the classroom and the teachers again, and for setting the standard of curriculums at the local level again, we might just have an opportunity of light shining on us to be able to educate our children the right way. Everybody on the western part of the state and beyond, have a great day. Here in Wichita, hour number 2 of The Voice Reasons coming up in just a minute. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
That's the priorities our government has set. We just talked about the state budget and where the money's going and how much taxes they want to increase on us. Now we're looking at the federal level and looking at a federal budget reform on what we can do to get our budget under control. And instead of worrying about where the money's going and what our tax rate's going to look like and what our spending's going to look like, we're too concerned with giving amnesty to illegal aliens. Notice the priority of the progressives.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, man, what a day it is. Welcome to a Wednesday morning. Good morning. This is The Voice of Reason. I am Andy Hoosier, broadcasting right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, along with KGPT-TV. Channel 2610. Welcome aboard. Good morning wherever you may be listening and or watching. We appreciate it. We love it as you're starting off your day 7 minutes past the hour, making a Wednesday happen, making Wednesdays great again. It's usually a hashtag Wackadoodle Wednesday, but there's not a whole lot of wackadoodleness today, so it's just going to be hump day today, I have to say. 721-825-5721 coming up in hour number 3. Carrie Lukas, she is the president of the Independent Women's Forum. She's going to be joining, discussing the Women's March over the weekend and how it may be a shocker to some, but the Women's March may not properly represent or reflect all women in the country. That'll make you think for a second, right? That'll make you think just for a second that maybe not the Women's March over the weekend wearing the pink hat and saying blankety blank Donald Trump and everything else that they like to say. I don't know. It sounds like gibberish to me.
And no, stay away them bushwhacking, hornswoggling, crocker,
He's gonna roll away. Biscuit cutter.
That's what it sounds like when they're chanting at a women's march. I don't get it. So we'll be talking with the Independent Women's Forum. Carrie Lukas is going to be joining us in an hour to discuss the conservative alternative to the Women's March and how to be pro-woman and how to actually be a proper woman with decency as a conservative. And you don't have to be conservative to be a decent woman. I'm not saying that in any way, shape, or form. Don't get offended. I'm not sending you trigger signs or trigger warnings in any way, shape, or form, but the conservative response to the Progressive Women's March over the weekend with Carrie Lukas in an hour from now. Until then, it's open lines to you, 721-8255-721-TALK. We have social media blasting all over the place on Facebook, on the Voice of Reason page, the KQAM page, on the Twitter at Hoosier Reason. The email, if you want to shoot me something, Andy at KQAMradio.com. The Facebook Live feed is rolling a little bit slower today. Share it, by the way. I know that there's been a lot of conservative outlets that have struggled getting the message out because Facebook has been trying to censor and silence a little bit of the messages from conservative messages. So it may not pop up on your wall, but go and find it. Facebook.com/1480KQAM or Facebook.com/Mid-America Reason. Go to the Voice of Reason page or the KQAM page. Go there, share the Facebook Live feed onto your wall. We do appreciate that very much. Let's blast it out because we're going to get silenced. Even in the state of Kansas, can you imagine? With the progressives trying to take over the state of Kansas, we're not going to have as much of a voice, and we cannot allow that to happen. So please go like it, share it, leave a comment. Let's blow that up, baby, and let's make that happen. I've been searching all over online, trying to find different legislation happening at the statewide level. There hasn't been a whole lot popping up. The media is not covering a lot of it. There should be, and I wish that we had journalistic news reporting today to where there'd be a section on maybe the website of local news sources, newspapers or something. There's just a site that just blasted out all the different legislation, all the bills being presented, good, bad, or indifferent, big ones, small ones, ridiculous ones. I don't know, just blast them all out. And then we could start addressing them and looking at them and seeing whether we like them or not. So I went onto the state legislative website and found some of the bills that are being presented. And I'm searching, and most of them are a whole lot of nothing. They're just regular day-to-day stuff, just voting on resolutions of this or that, and it's really not a whole lot. But I found an interesting one, and as we talked about education in the last hour, I thought you might be intrigued with this one, so I'm going to ask you this question. This is House Bill number 2008. And this one kind of goes along with education, and I'm torn on it. I don't think I'm a fan of it. We've been talking about the spending of money in little chunks. We did the largest tax increase in state history last year. We've gone through 2 tax increases at the statewide level last July and January 1 of this year. We are going to owe taxes when we file in April. I've told you this over and over and over. You're prepared for it. You're ready for it. But along with that, now we're seeing the increased attempt to want to spend more money. And we see the education, or we see the Medicaid, or we see the corrections facilities, or we see the judicial branch, or whatever we want to see. More money going all over the place. The small little things. And small little things add up. If you talk to Dave Ramsey and you talk about getting out of financial debt, they talk about getting rid of the small things and letting the small things add up. Little by little by little. Then you start getting out of debt. You start paying off your debt. You start doing well again. And this is the way the government looks at it, except for the opposite direction, because they want to spend little. And then they look at a big chunk of the debt at the end of it and say, oh, look at that. We didn't have enough money. Better raise taxes. Not the best of way to do it, but okay. But this one is another one of those little bitty things to where it's just kind of going to cost more money. House Bill number 2008. In addition to the requirements in federal motor vehicle safety standards, every school bus purchased on and after the effective date of this act shall be equipped with the factory-installed lap shoulder seat belts, also referred to as the 3-point harness system, for each seating position on school buses that are in conformity with the applicable federal standards. Every passenger on a school bus equipped with a seat belt shall wear a properly adjusted and fastened seat belt that is in conformity with the applicable federal standards at all times while the bus is in operation. Adding seat belts to all of our school buses in the state of Kansas. And I thought about it. And I was pondering this last night, and I brought it up to my wife, and we discussed it a little bit. And we were already kind of on different ends of this one. I have a very hard time with laws created with additional safety measures to protect ourselves from ourselves. I don't like them. I don't like the fact that you are mandated in many states to have to wear a helmet when you ride a motorcycle. You should wear a helmet because it's kind of a safety thing, and if you don't, then when you hit the pavement, then you're not going to have much of a head left. But you shouldn't have to. It's kind of the, Darwinism at its best, weeding out the weak ones kind of thing. We should not have to have a law. We shouldn't even have to have a warning on the labels of saying don't eat Tide Pods. But yet, they've had to put the warning labels on there. Don't consume this product. It could be harmful. And yet we still do it. We see people vaping with it. We see people cooking with it. We see people eating it for whatever reason because they think Tide Pods are really cool. And they look flashy and they look colorful and they look like they're very fruity. I don't know. But they're eating them now. So should we put labels on that saying don't eat the Tide Pod because it's Clorox dummy? We shouldn't. Because if you're dumb enough to do it, then you know what? All the power to you. Another reason why, again, we shouldn't advocate for universal health care and pay for the health care of these individuals who end up wanting to consume that. Should we have the laws of no texting and driving? I don't think we should. How do we enforce it? Should you be texting and driving? Absolutely not. But should we tell you not to do so or else you're going to get in trouble? No. And that one I can almost see a little bit because if you're putting yourself in danger, that one puts someone else in danger as well. So the question I have to you is, should we be spending the money or the attention on wanting to add seatbelts to the school buses for our children? There are over 11,000 school buses in the state of Kansas. If we advocate for saying any new purchased buses after this date that we end up passing this, if it ends up going through, then we start spending money on this. Eventually, we're going to have to replace all 11,000 school buses in the state. That costs, by the way, over $11,000 per bus to add the seatbelts, which $11,000 per bus times 11,000 school buses in the state is about $121 million that we would be spending on that, probably spread out throughout a couple of years, which isn't a too terrible much, but it's that another little chunk in the piece of the pie that the government wants from your paycheck. Now, I don't know about you, but I rode a school bus when I was a kid. I went to school every day on a school bus all the way up until I got my car my senior year of high school, and I was driving to school. And then I still rode the bus once in a while when I needed to because I was a young high school kid and I didn't have any gas money. So I ended up having to ride the bus sometimes. I survived without having to wear a seatbelt on the school bus. Now I understand that, and see, my wife is different. She thinks, hey, you know what? We have a 3-year-old now. We're a little more protective, and I'd like to see seatbelts on the school bus because I want to make sure that my child is safe every single time that she goes to school. Every time. There are crazy people on the road. There are individuals that are consuming different products that could potentially put them in danger. I saw the story from CNN from just about a week ago that parents in Chattanooga, Tennessee are mourning the deaths of at least 5 children whose lives were cut short when their school bus smashed into a tree and split apart on Monday. The driver, 24-year-old, was arrested and charged with vehicular homicide because they had the intention of wanting to cause harm and wanting to crash. Now, that doesn't happen very often. And according to the numbers that I have, on average, 134 people a year end up dying from a bus accident. And out of those 134 individuals, only 8% of them, meaning only really about 10 people a year, died that were actually on the school bus or on a bus. The rest of the people were the people that were affected by an accident outside of the bus in the individual cars. So for really 10 people a year with an accident, is it worth spending another additional piece of the pie of our state budget on buses with seatbelts? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Am I not caring? Am I just being insensitive? Or should we look at the safety of our children as the utmost importance and therefore whatever it takes? And if we do want to talk about seatbelts, then we should have the seatbelts in the school buses for our children. I want to hear from you on this issue and more. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
back into the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker KQAM along with KGPT TV. Welcome aboard. Happy Wednesday to you. 316-721-825. I know it's kind of a silly discussion. Some people are like, Andy, I really don't care. I really don't care. You're talking about seatbelts on school buses. Really? Come on. But we need to look at, in my opinion, we need to look at all the different pieces of legislation going through. What's the priority of the legislature right now? What are they focused on? What are they paying attention to, dialoguing about, debating on? And how much is it going to cost? I am very skeptical. I'm one of those guys where I don't like to part with my money a lot. And I'm very passionate about what I do spend my money on. And if we took that mentality to the state government, then we would look at some of these things and laugh and say, are you kidding me? We have certain departments that really don't need as much money as what they have. We have inefficient spending where we're throwing our money right now that's just not appropriate. We're talking about the small chip-ins of spending increases in other places that we may not necessarily need. Some of them we do, some of them we don't. And then we talk about some things like this, putting seatbelts on school buses. If we're going to fix the education side of the state of Kansas, we need to be focused on the education side, not saying that, well, as long as the kids got there safe, then that was half the job. As long as they got to the school building safe, then that's all that matters. The rest of it will just kind of be downhill from there. Come on. Not to mention how much responsibility we're going to put on the bus drivers. I don't know if you remember or not, but riding on a school bus, the kids were all over the place. Especially young kids. Try and get elementary kids to sit still when they're 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years old. And they're wanting to play with their friends. And they're wanting to chat. And they're throwing paper airplanes or whatever they're doing. I remember those days. You're going to put a seatbelt on them and try and make sure that they stay in their seatbelt, that they're sitting there quietly, and they have their books on their lap, and they don't say a single word because they never make a lot of noise for the school bus driver when they're actually trying to drive the school bus. They're not going to do any of that, right? How many times the school bus are going to have to be pulled over for the school bus driver to get up, and every time they stop to pick up a new kid, get them to their seat, fasten them in, and say, don't you get up now. Don't you do anything. Don't you get up and make any havoc. As soon as they take off, the kids are going to unbuckle their seatbelts and do whatever the hell they want to. Come on. We're focusing the priorities in the wrong direction here. We're focusing on the wrong part of education. Let's focus on why the kids, once they get to school, they're not learning what they need to learn. Why the teachers that have been struggling for a long time have to pay out of their own pocket for the resources in the classroom, why they're not getting compensated, or why the school district isn't covering it for them. Well, we don't have the money for that. We don't have the money for your salaries. Give me a break. You're going to complain to the fact that you can't write off on your taxes anymore, sinking your own money into the classroom, but yet the school's not going to pay for that because the teachers' union's really there to take care of you, right? I don't see it. And then we're focused on this. Seatbelts on the school buses. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you like the idea of school buses having the seatbelts and saying that we should start implementing that. Little by little, we stretch it out over a 3 or 5 year span, and we start replacing all 11,000 plus school buses in the state of Kansas, and we give them the seatbelt, and then we start teaching the kids how to behave on the school bus. We start teaching them how to behave. Yeah, we start giving them the Ritalin so that way they can start paying attention and not be hyperactive as a 7-year-old. Now, right now, the school bus safety procedures, school bus safety unit provides information on schools, contracts, transportation operations, and patrons in all aspects of safety transporting students to and from school and activities. Oral and written responses to questions and interpretation of school transportation regulations, statutes, and operating procedures and guidelines are provided on a daily basis, along with our partners for the Kansas Highway Patrol and unit coordinates the annual inspection process over the 11,000+ school buses and school vehicles across the entire state of Kansas. So we have already inspections. We make sure they're safe. And if you do run into, you have a fender bender, you have someone run in, you have the really tall seats in front of you that protect you from anything. And the biggest fight is just trying to get the kids to actually stay on the seat instead of like hunkering down underneath the seat. You remember that? Remember the kids that tried to lay down under the seat and try and take a nap during the ride to the school because it's really early in the morning? Yeah, we need to stop some of that stuff. How many times will your school bus driver actually get up and yell, "Hey, quiet down back there! Hey, sit down! Stop moving!" Yeah. You think that's going to stop if you give them a seatbelt? Probably not. 721-8255, 721-TALK. It's an interesting conversation, but the priorities right now of the legislature. Another issue that they are bringing up that is important, and we'll talk about this after the bottom of the hour, is transparency. And I'm noticing a trend. Republicans and Democrats this year, even in the election cycle, those who are running for office, for the governorship or for the legislature, for their midterm elections, a lot of individuals are focusing on, quote unquote, transparency. Transparency of the legislature, transparency of the executive branch, transparency so that way you have the ability to be able to look at what they're discussing and what they're doing. I like the idea of transparency, obviously. I think it's a great idea. I think we need more of it, but I think it needs to be directed. And we need to be very careful, as we always do when it comes to political issues, on how it's presented as saying we want to be transparent and we want transparency to the legitimateness of the transparency. What are they trying to make transparent? Or is it the falsehood to where it looks like we're transparent, but behind the closed doors in the other room, they're actually shenanigan and creating the legislation the way they want to, crafting it, and then they come out to the transparent level and say, oh, look, this has already been created. Now you can see what we're doing with it. I want to see transparency all across the board, and the big focal point that I want to see is transparency from the judicial branch. I want to see how we nominate Supreme Court justices. I want to have a little bit more of a say in the nomination of the Supreme Court justices. I want to know the discussions on when they're discussing who they're going to nominate for the Supreme Court. I want to know how we can start making our Supreme Court nominations better from the executive branch when he has to choose between crappy option A, B, or C. I want to start looking at the entire process. I want to see how they're discussing constitutional issues in the state of Kansas. I want to start looking at everything. We want to talk about transparency. Let's look at transparency. We got a long ways to go, and that is a legitimate issue that we should be focused on. If you want to see seatbelts on your school buses, I guess we can spend $121 million and focus on something other than what's happening in the classroom. Again, when, as far as I'm aware of, we haven't seen any crazy accidents of kids missing or being harmed in school buses over the last few years in the state of Kansas. Bottom of the hour news coming up. This is The Voice of Reason.
Taking talk radio to the next level. The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. Happy Wednesday morning to you as you're starting off your day, sipping on your coffee, driving to work, thinking what you're going to do for the day. That's what I'm here for, to help you get woken up and excited about the day. 316-721-8255, 721-TALK. It's open lines to you for the next 20 minutes. I want to hear from you on whatever's on your mind. Something troubling you, bothering you, don't you worry, we got you covered. And keeping you informed on what's happening at the state level so we can have some knowledge. The power of knowledge is greater than we can ever anticipate. What do they say? The power of the pen is mightier than the sword. Sometimes. I don't know of any swords that are in Topeka. 721-8255, 721-TALK. Talking about transparency. Here's a couple stories I found within a couple days span, about a 2-day span. First off, Kansas Senate President proposes transparency measure for the executive branch. Kansas Senate's top Republicans offer a proposal Friday last week aiming at bringing more transparency to state contracts, citing concerns legislators had over one of Governor Brownback's previous proposed projects. Senate President Susan Wagle, Wichita Republican, announces that she would introduce a bill requesting lobbyist registration for anyone looking to influence officials in state agencies or the governor's office over a state contract. Okay. Transparency, making sure that we don't have any special interest trying to pull their shenanigans when it comes to state projects. That would be really nice to see on some of our debates with education. And we should list, by the way, on the legislators that support increased education spending, we should probably go into that side of it as well and say where their money's coming from and what school districts they're actually in. I wonder, just thinking out loud, I wonder where some of those are from. On the other side of it, we have the Democrats. Another story from the Topeka Capital Journal. Kansas House and Senate Democrats made the latest in a series of calls for transparency on Tuesday with a list of policy proposals aimed at shining a light on Kansas government practices. At a news conference, leaders introduced more than a dozen bills that would be anonymous voting, that would ban anonymous voting, open state records, tighten lobbying rules, and ban gut and go, which is a practice that allows legislators to strike a bill that passed committee and replaced it with another one during the debate on the House or the Senate floor. Both of them I would agree with. But we're missing one huge thing right here. We're missing a major part of this. Yes, we should look at transparency for the executive branch. Let's look and see where the special interests are coming from. Sure, why not? Welcome to politics. There's a lot of special interests on both sides of the aisle. There's a lot of money coming in for campaigns. There's a lot of money coming in from all different areas, and they have their projects. Welcome to politics. There's nothing new there. To be aware of that a little bit more, sure, let's be aware of it a little bit more. I have no problem with that. Yesterday, we talked about the transparency of proposing anonymous bills, which I am strongly against. And I don't care whether it's proposed by a Republican or a Democrat. I want to know exactly who's proposing these things. We have records that we want to hold our elected officials accountable for their voting records, for what they, not just their voting records, but how they debate, what they debate on, what legislation they propose. I want to know those things. Maybe I'm a dork that way and I just like it, but I want to know those things. I want to know exactly what they're saying. I want to hear not just on the floor of the debates, but I want to hear the committees. I want to hear about what they're doing in the committees, because Republicans having a massive control of the state legislature, they could be fighting any bill they want to on the floor and saying that they can fight it all they want to, but they don't have the numbers to do the most conservative thing, or they can make whatever excuse they want to. But at the end of the day, how did it get out of committee? Who's controlling the committees and who proposed legislation in the committees? I kind of want to know that. And I know in the state of Kansas that we have the ability to propose legislation in committees anonymously, so that way your name's not tagged onto it. You can't do that at the federal level. It's a totally different scenario. When you propose a bill, you have the sponsor, you have the co-sponsors, you have the endorsements of, you have individuals' names all over it saying that all of these individuals in the Senate or in the House or both support this bill and help to write it and craft it. And that way you know exactly where it's coming from. If you remember during the national reciprocity debate that we had before the end of the year, which we still, by the way, have not been able to ram through national reciprocity, the largest pro-gun bill since the Second Amendment, really, and we still have not been able to pass it. The Senate has not taken it up. But along with that was the Fix NICS bill, that many individuals did not like the Fix NICS bill. I have no problem with it because it's really irrelevant. It doesn't do anything. That's besides the point. If you remember, the reason that some pro-gun individuals and organizations did not like the National Reciprocity Bill and the Fix NICS attached to one another is because the Fix NICS bill was proposed by John Cornyn from Texas, the Republican, along with Chuck Schumer, along with the progressives that have been fighting to take away your guns for a long time. And it was the joint bipartisanship of John Cornyn, the conservative Republican from Texas, and Chuck Schumer, the Democrat, and how they came up with the Fix NICS bill and tagged that on to the national reciprocity. And that was the big issue. And everybody went up opposition to it, because as long as there's a Democrat as extremely progressive as someone like Chuck Schumer, then they would shy away from it and they wouldn't like it. And if they have their dirty hands in it, then somehow it's going to, to some degree taint it. And it did taint it. I'm not saying that it didn't. But that's why we need to know what bills are being proposed and by whom they're being proposed from. I want to see that kind of trend. Let's go deeper. Politics is all about, again, the PR and about the money. And right now they're trying to show the facade of wanting to have a little more transparency about the money side of it, but they're still doing the good PR campaign to try and keep some things hidden. And if we're going to have transparency, let's see transparency. If we're going to keep them accountable, let's keep them accountable, not just on the floor when they debate and when they vote, but at the same time within the committees when they propose them and they write the bills in the first place. Do you agree with that? Or do you think that we've allowed them to go to office, we voted for them, we trust them, they are our representative, we have a republic form of government, they are our representative, so therefore we should trust what they come up with in the committee, and it doesn't really matter? I'd like to see transparency, and yes, they did They are representing us, and we did vote them in. But at the same time, I want to know what they're doing so that way we can make sure they're holding up their end of the bargain of promising what they said they were going to do when they got up there. And it's not one of those, oh, we tried to stop it, but we just couldn't, when they allowed it to go through some committee that they could have potentially prevented. At the same time, they're wanting that transparency for the executive branch. Fine. We want to track the money. We want to track the special interests. We want to track certain things to keep the executive branch under control, and we can hold them accountable. All the power to it. That's fantastic. But I have yet to see transparency or a discussion about transparency on the third branch of government. I don't know if we're aware or not, but there is a third branch of government called the judicial branch, if I can talk today. And the Kansas Supreme Court is head of that judicial branch. And the Supreme Court is one of the most corrupt branches of government that we have in our state government today, as we talk about many times before. They have a terrible record with the district courts overturning their decisions. We have no transparency on what we're doing to actually nominate these individuals to get up there. Only individuals that are actually bar approved are able to vote for Supreme Court nominations. They pick 3, and then they send it to the governor to make that choice. And the governor has very limited choice on who they're allowed to pick. And then we just hope that they understand the Constitution enough to make the right decisions for the state. And that's not transparency. That's not the way that we should actually have the process. We should have a better say. We, the people, if we're going to do a vote in order to nominate certain individuals, we should have a vote maybe. If the bar, just legal people, just because you have you passed your bar and you're a quote unquote lawyer, then you have a say, I think it's shenanigans. I think we should take it a step further. Either the governor gets to choose the 3 nominees, and then we do it like the federal level to where the governor chooses the 3 nominees, and then the Senate is able to do the hearing, is able to list them, ask them questions, interview them, and then choose them, which I am a fan of. Or we choose them on a ballot vote from the people. We nominate the top ones, they get the top 3 percentages, whatever, and then we have either Congress, a chamber of Congress, or the governor be able to choose from there. But we need to change that system, and then let's have a little bit more transparency on how they're making their decisions. We need to have a better way to hold our Supreme Court accountable for their decisions. If we're going to look at transparency, let's look at transparency. The Republicans are throwing mud at to be able to find transparency for the Democrats. The Democrats are trying to throw mud for transparency against the Republicans, and it's all facade. And some of it may be good, some of it's not. I support what's being proposed on both sides right now. I want to see transparency across the board so that way we have the best voice and the best say that we possibly can on all 3 branches of our government. 721-8255, 721-TALK. Let's go right to the phones. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, sir. This is Drew.
Drew, how are you, sir?
I'm amazing.
Good.
Hey, couple thoughts. Number one, really, what argument is a legislator going to make for saying, no, we need to hide this part of government?
Yeah, and once we start opening up this can, if they want to start talking about transparency and we blow the lid off it and start saying, let's go a little bit deeper with more transparency, I don't know what their response would be of, no, you don't need to know what's going on in the committees. Don't worry about that. You just need to know what's happening on the floor.
Second thing is, I would love it if one of your panel of experts could call in, Carl or Bob or somebody who knows the answer to my question, because I have a feeling that when the tyrants in black robes this year sue the legislature for more funding, when they go ahead and overturn and attempt to close the schools, when they continue this just absolute tirade they've had of holding the state hostage, and as you pointed out, they are an elitist bunch chosen by a non-government entity. I'd like to know, because they had plenty of build-up time, they had plenty of outside funding, they had plenty of all of the things to get ready for this election on defending their seats. I'd like to see how well they stand now against a recall election. And I'd like to know, because, again,
you're talking about Supreme Court justices having a recall vote. Okay.
Can they be recalled? Under what conditions can they be recalled? How is that mechanism done? Because I'm pretty sure that after they're done with their little foolishness this year, that election result's going to look a whole lot different this time.
Well, that is very true, and I appreciate the call, Drew. We're going to have to take a break in a minute. That's a really good question. How can we do a recall? Now, recalls are very, very difficult to do. Now, and you're right, we need to get an expert on to talk about the recall of a Supreme Court justice and if that's possible. I'm sure it is in some way, shape, or form. For normally, if you remember, like the recalls that happened up in Wisconsin for Governor Scott Walker, you have to have a certain amount of petition votes and signatures in order to get a recall going. Then you have to have a massive majority of the people to vote for it, which they were not able to do like the 2 or 3 times they tried to recall him. So I'm assuming it would be the relatively kind of the same process for a Supreme Court justice. But remember as well, now, it's almost not worth it, unfortunately. Now, because a lot of them are being term limited out. Supreme Court justices, they're being term limited out, and by the time we start the process, look, it takes almost a year to make this happen. They only have a couple of years left on their term. Is it worth it, or do we write it out and just try and change the process for the nomination process the next time round? And I want to focus more so on that. I mean, it's a good question to talk about a recall, and we should have that knowledge in order for future discussions. But I almost want to change the process now to start weeding out. Look, we got to remember the Supreme Court, whether you're talking about the Supreme Court at the state level or a Supreme Court at the federal level, we have to remember that it's a long-term discussion. FDR was very, very bright on this, which is why we got as progressive as we have today, because he understood that by having the courts push the progressive agenda, then even though he's out of office, his legacy will continue on because we have 30 years of progressive decision-making through the legal system as opposed to the executive branch that's very limited on power. And that's what they've done here at the state level as well. We have progressive Supreme Court justices, for the most part, that have been making bad decisions for a very, very long time. It's very difficult to do a recall. It's very difficult to have them not retain their seats, as we saw in the election last time. And now we need to start looking at how to change that process so either you and I have a better voice in the nomination, or we start going more mainstream on how we nominate our Supreme Court justices, with the governor picking somebody and then the Senate being able to question them and vote on them to approve them, and having the two different branches being able to decide who's actually going to. Remember, we have a checks and balance system. We're supposed to have a checks and balance system. Every branch of government holds the other two accountable. And the way we nominate Supreme Court justices right now, we really just leave one branch of government out of the discussion completely. How does the House or the Senate have any say in the Supreme Court nominations right now? They don't. If you remember the Bar Association, you get to vote on the nominees. They pick 3 nominees. They send them to the governor, and the governor picks one. You leave Congress out of it completely. Under our process, we're supposed to have a checks and balance system. Let's allow Congress to have a say in this, because they're more representative of the people than the Bar Association, for one, and for just one branch like the executive and the governorship for the other. Let's have some more transparency all across the board. All 3 branches. Let's have a say in some more of this stuff. What do you say? This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number 2. When we come back, we're going to be having Carrie Lukas from the Independent Women's Forum discussing the Women's March over the weekend, wearing the pink hats. When it comes to some of the state legislative issues, heck with education funding, the heck with Medicaid expansion, the heck with funding the corrections facilities officers, the heck with everything else, we have a serious issue, ladies and gentlemen. A serious issue that needs to be addressed, that is the priority above all other priorities. This letter was forwarded to me from one of our state legislators. I'm going to keep anonymous right now, but from one of their constituents concerned about an issue, fighting, which is great to reach out, to have your issue addressed and concerned. But here's what the letter has to say, if I not click on something else to take it away from my screen. Dear Representative, I am a woman who has a problem with my former chiropractor. In order to understand this problem, you'll need to go to Wikipedia and look up astral projection. This is a very rare event where a person's soul leaves its body and travels. You may have heard of it as an out-of-body travel experience. My former chiropractor asked me out on a date, and I refused. I also stopped using his services. It was then that his soul started traveling to my home. I have asked him to stop, but he will not. The problem is that the state of Kansas, it is not illegal to astral project into someone's home. So the police cannot arrest him, even though I have asked him to do so. Therefore, I need your help in passing and voting on a new law that prohibits the astral projection and astral traveling to anyone's home, car, workplace, etc. without permission. I know this sounds really far out there, but I can see this man's soul in my home on a regular basis. Would you please help me? Please let me know if there's anything I can do to help you with this. I am anxious awaiting your reply. And hopefully your help. The priorities that we need to have focused right now. Now, his response to them, you need a seatbelt on your school bus. Yes. The response to this, I thought was brilliant. First off, responded back, thanks for reaching out. This sounds like a Health and Human Services issue, so I'm handing you over to their department to see if they can help. They receive it, and they respond back, I've already seen this and determined it is part of the ag bill because it has to do with nature. So the issue all across the board, maybe it has to do with nature, I don't know, but now we need to really focus on astral projection of someone going into somebody else's home with permission. Well, at least we're concerned about it. Now, look, the whole astral projection thing, whether you want to believe in it or not believe in it, it doesn't really matter to me. I'm glad that people are passionate about the issues that they want to be passionate about, but let's focus on... I don't even know how to respond to it. Let's focus on the priorities, shall we? And if you have astral projection, maybe, I don't know, maybe we should look at a piece of legislation making it illegal to astral project into somebody else's home willingly. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. I guess we can consider that reasonable to some degree. Hour number 3 of The Voice of Reason coming up in a minute. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
That's the priorities our government has set. We just talked about the state budget and where the money's going and how much taxes they want to increase on us. Now we're looking at the federal level and looking at a federal budget reform on what we can do to get our budget under control. And instead of worrying about where the money's going and what our tax rate's going to look like and what our spending's going to look like, we're too concerned with giving amnesty to illegal aliens. Notice the priority of the progressives.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, man, welcome into The Voice of Reason. Hour number 3 of The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, along with, we want to welcome KGPT TV, channel 2610 for the video broadcast. Welcome aboard wherever you may be listening. Happy Wednesday morning to you. It is Wackadoodle Wednesday. It's Hump Day. It is the middle of the week. It's the day before the pre-Friday celebration. It's a fantastic day. Let's make it happen and enjoy just a little bit. What do you say? 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, we have social media galore, which has been a little bit slower today. I'm thinking that Facebook is trying to censor us. Just saying. Go onto the Facebook pages, like the Facebook Live feed, share it. Let's spread it around. Leave a comment, ask a question, whatever you want to do on the Voice of Reason page, the KQAM page. It does not matter. Let's grow it. Let's make it happen. This is, by the way, the fastest growing conservative program in the entire state of Kansas. Let's get to our next guest, shall we? I'm really excited about this. As you know, over the weekend, we had, I'm still thinking about the astral projection bill being, trying to move forward in the legislature. We'll see how far that one goes. Over the weekend, as you know, the Women's March happened, and you can see the pink hats, and you can see everybody upset, which I still don't know the definitive purpose of it. I don't know this. When you protest something, when you become an activist, you have to have an agenda. You have to have a purpose and a drive for it, other than just showing up and just wanting to hold really creative signs. There's a meaning to it. There's something that you want to change, something that you want to do, rather than just, we don't like Donald Trump. We don't like Governor Sam Brownback. We saw the march here in Wichita that had a couple hundred people show up. We had the march up in Topeka that had a few people and a few individuals show up and protested the conservative policies of the state of Kansas. And the question is, wearing the pink hats and talking about feminism in that sense, is that what women are all about? Is that the purpose? Now, you and I know I talk about all the time the identity politics, and I'm not a fan of identity politics, whether it's skin color, whether it's gender, whether it's sexual orientation. Why do we categorize ourselves in that sense? Liberty is liberty for all individuals. And if you have opportunities to succeed in life, then that's all you need. We don't need it based on protected classes. So to talk about that and more, I'm really excited. She is the president of the Independent Women's Forum. She's co-author, Liberty is No War on Women, and the author of The Politically Incorrect Guide to Women, Sex, and Feminism. She is Carrie Lukas on the line with us. Carrie, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much for coming on. It's great to talk to you. Your thoughts over the massive march. Now, of course, the media doesn't cover the pro-life march that happened on Friday where, close to 600,000 people show up. But the marches that happened all over the country on Saturday for the Women's March, what's your take on all of this and the movement of progressive feminism today?
Yeah, it is interesting. I'm glad that you kind of made this distinction because who it is exactly who's marching, because they call it the Women's March. It really bugs me that in the media they seem to just allow them to kind of take that mantle as if they're marching for all women, and somehow this is a representative of most American women, when in fact, you and I know, I bet that there's a lot of women listening right now who say, they're not marching for me. I know they're not marching for me and the women at the Independent Women's Forum, because, I believe the policies that they are supporting would be bad for women or bad for the country.
Sure.
And that's a conversation we should have and a debate we should have. But we need to recognize that women are not a monolith. And it's too bad, I think, that so often kind of that gets lost in the media coverage of things like this. It's not the Women's March. It was the Progressive Women's March.
Exactly. Well, I have a hard time understanding how when they come out and they say that, well, and again, I mean, proud to be a woman. That's fantastic. Proud to be a man. That's fine. Whatever. I don't really care. But they're the ones that say, don't judge me based on my gender. But then we want to wear pink hats, let you know what kind of gender that we are. I mean, to me, it doesn't make any sense.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. And, it's interesting because I think that last year, what was happening with the march that came to Washington following the election of President Trump, I got it. I understood there were a lot of people who didn't know what the president was obviously a very new figure. People didn't know what to expect. There had been so much kind of real propaganda about what the terrible things he was going to do that I understood where some women had angst about it. But now, a year into this, I think it's interesting because you can see that the whole tenor of it has changed. And I think you're right that to know exactly what they're protesting now, other than that they just don't like the party and the president. But all the things that they were saying were going to happen last year, all those, the terrible things, the idea that women were going to somehow lose some fundamental rights, those have been proven to be totally bogus. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of women out there, women who last year were anxious about it, who now say, you know what, I'm really happy that these taxes are cut. I'm happy that the business I work for is expanding and hiring more people and raising wages. There's a lot of people out there who say things aren't so bad after all. So, I do think that it's becoming more and more of just a simply progressive kind of fringe movement. And I assume that'll continue over the next year. It might even be even more fringe.
Well, I'm sure it will. And that's what I wanted to ask you guys. I mean, I remember, and I have friends on social media that I was friends with back in high school, and all these individuals who are extreme progressives who said, oh, welcome back to the 1950s and welcome back to turning back the clock on civil rights, and Donald Trump's going to get rid of women's rights, and you're not going to be able to vote again, and you're not going to be able to go to work, and this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I may be out of the loop here because I'm not a woman, but I have not seen that happen.
No, exactly. And even this idea that I think that there was going to be this fascist takeover where we were no longer going to have the checks and balances. Well, actually, we've seen that a lot of the president's most top priorities haven't been implemented yet because there have been checks. I sure wish that Obamacare a repeal of Obamacare got through the Senate, but it didn't, and so he hasn't been able to make good on that promise yet. Immigration is an ongoing concern. They haven't been able to radically change that now. And while that's frustrating for some of us, it's also a show that the system works. Change takes time.
Sure.
So certainly there hasn't been, he hasn't become a dictator overnight, as some in the media would have you believe.
That is true. Talk about the feminist movement, the difference between the feminist movement, between the progressive mindset of a feminist movement and the conservative movement of a feminist movement. My wife is very strong-willed. She has ambitions. She has career ambitions. She has ambitions to want to have, we have a 3-year-old daughter, and she wants to be the best mom. She wants to be the best wife. She wants to be the best at whatever she does. To me, I see feminism of having that drive, having that ambition, and having the option to do whatever she wants to do. She's a stay-at-home mom, and that's what she chose to do because she likes that, and that was her choice. She had great careers, and she wanted to stay home. Feminism, to me, is the fact of having a choice on what you want to do with your life and everybody around you supporting you. But to some progressives, they don't see that as a feminist choice because you're being stuck at home. What's the difference here?
Yeah, I agree, and I do think that there's when you look at what's going on in the feminist progressive feminist movement. I think there is this kind of idea that there's America can do nothing right. When you look at people, they would say that they respect women's right to stay home and have kids, but then they're really mad about the consequences of that. You think about something like the wage gap. You always hear about this as if with the implication that every company in the world or every company in America is sexist and is paying coworkers differently depending on what their sex is. And that's just not the case. The fact is that women tend to make different choices, opt for jobs that pay less but have other qualities they find desirable, and a lot of women are willing to make that trade-off. But the progressive feminists get really frustrated with that. Whereas a conservative, I salute your wife for staying at home. I salute the woman who's pursuing the top job in the corner office, and I salute all the women who are somewhere in between who are saying, you know what, I love my job. It's not the highest paying job, but I really value what I'm doing. That's a fine. Money isn't everything, and I do think that's the world isn't going to be able to make it so we can all be a stay-at-home mom and make top dollar, which is sometimes I think that's really what the progressives don't want women to have to make choices. Where I feel like as a conservative feminist, I want people to have choices, but then you're going to have to make them, and there's a lot of trade-offs you're going to face as a woman deciding what path you're going to want to take.
Exactly. We're talking with Carrie Lukas, president of Independent Women's Forum. You mentioned those wages, and sometimes the women, whether they take the lower salary wage jobs just because that's what they enjoy, or because maybe they are in and out of the workforce because maybe they want to have children and they want to be able to stay at home, or they bounce around. Does that affect? I'm curious. Just I don't know. Does that affect that argument when they say that women aren't paid the same as men or equally to men? Does that number reflect in the blips that they see?
Oh, absolutely. When you start controlling for things like number of hours worked, because the Department of Labor is just comparing people classified as full-time workers, when in fact men work on average a little more than a half an hour extra a day than women do. So that alone, you would say the person who's working more is probably going to make more money too. But it's also, there's a flip side to this. It's not just that women tend to appreciate other, to take jobs that pay less and have other valuable attributes. Men often take on a lot of jobs that have unpleasant attributes in order to make more money. You have men driving trucks overnight and working the hard shifts, taking risks on fishing boats and in coal mines, guarding prisons, things that a lot of us would say, oh gosh, that doesn't sound like such fun, but a lot of men are willing to do it so that they can earn more money, often to provide for their families. Mm-hmm. They deserve that extra, that makes sense. That's how the market works. And it's not that men are making the right choices and women are making the wrong ones, or vice versa. It's that we all have different preferences, and when you do start controlling for that stuff, we're much closer to parity than the feminist left would have you believe.
Exactly. Talk about this Me Too movement. So lately we've been seeing the big movement with the sexual assault, the sexual harassment, the rape cases happening all over the place, which is really sad. It's been, and everybody admits it, it's been something kind of entwined into society for a while, and it's good that it's coming out, but at the same time, do you feel that there's been the proper due process in some of these cases of the accusations of some women about some men coming after them, and they deny it, and whether it's true or not, the reputation has been damaged, maybe businesses have been damaged, maybe political campaigns have been damaged? I mean, where do we go from this entire Me Too movement of sexual harassment in society?
Yeah, it really is interesting, because I agree with you. I think that there was something, there's obviously, it's really important, and that guys like Harvey Weinstein have been outed, and men who've really been truly victimizing women and being true predators, and we need to make sure that that's something that is aired, and that those guys are brought to justice. But it's also important, I think, to have the conversation about not every guy is a Harvey Weinstein, and there's a lot more gray areas. And right now, I think that there is a concern, or we need to kind of be on the lookout for demonizing men and making it so, equating lumping guys in who may have awkwardly asked a woman out, a coworker out, lumping them in with a sexual predator, and that's really not fair, and that's not fair to the men, and it's also not fair to women. There's a lot of women out there who want to be able to go out for a drink with their coworker and see if where that might take them in a very respectful relationship. We can't kind of make normal human interaction off limits or demonize it. And I do think that that's an important process. But one other aspect of this, if I can, on the Me Too movement, another thing I think people should be watching out for is, I was disturbed in looking at the Women's March, almost trying to claim that for their own, when I think one of the things that's been good about the Me Too movement is this idea that we all recognize that there's bad apples on both sides.
Sure.
But they're trying to lump in this idea of the wage gap as if that's a part of Me Too and the sexual harassment, and it's just not. And as they try to do that, they really undermine the consensus that we have that we need to try to figure out ways to prevent sexual harassment in our civil society or in our in our country in general. But by making it as if because you don't support some regulation when it comes to how compensation works, that you're somehow supporting sexual harassment or something, and that's that's terrible. We don't need to politicize this. This is complicated enough as it is. We don't need to get kind of throw these other issues in there and try to use this movement for a different end.
Oh, of course they try. Of course they would try and throw in the salary gaps and the wage gaps is on there because they can throw anything at the wall and see what sticks. It's scary because as you mentioned, just regular association in the general public. Someone coming into work and saying, "Hey, you look nice today. Did you do something to your hair?" Or even the young kids that are trying to maybe flirt and trying to actually find a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Nowadays, guys, I got to say, are scared to death to even approach a girl because you mentioned something of, "Hey, your hair looks nice today," and you could potentially have someone saying that you sexually harassed her.
Absolutely, and we do. We really need to be careful that we don't become kind of an Orwellian society where guys have to women are able to kind of throw around these harassments or these accusations and ruin somebody's life. Because that is, that's terrible. It's not good for anybody. And this isn't, I feel like this isn't, we don't want to, so often I feel like in these conversations we end up sounding as if men and women are on different teams, and if men lose, then women win, and vice versa. When, I don't think that's how anybody I know thinks about it. I have, husbands, brothers, sons, fathers. These are people think about this, and we want a good world for men and fairness for men as well as for women. Mm-hmm. We can't kind of lose sight of this as we talk about solutions.
It's a great point. We got just about a minute or so left here, but talk about what women can do, because there are so many women. I have a ton of women listeners that call in all the time and talk about their views and how these progressives who have the loudest voice and say that they're there for women, they don't represent them. What can women do to have that voice back of saying, you don't represent me, I'm going to do my own thing? I have the real choice of a woman, or the real feminist movement as a woman. And with your organization, with the Independent Women's Forum, what can women do to have that proper voice again?
Yeah, one of the great things about modern life is that we have such an ability to get our views out there through social media. So please come visit us at Independent Women's Forum, or IWF. We're online, and you can come see our work there. Join us on Facebook. But be sure to share your views with your friends. Don't be afraid to speak up, because you're likely to find that there's a lot more people out there who are on your side than you might think from just reading the women's magazines or from watching TV. So please speak up and use those tools that you have available to you on Twitter and Facebook and places like that.
Activism at its best. Carrie Lukas, president of Independent Women's Forum. Carrie, so much great information. We got to get you back on the show. I really appreciate you coming on with us today.
This was such fun. Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely appreciate it. 23 minutes past the hour. Let's take a break here. Open up lines to you when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. 28 minutes past the hour. Bottom of the hour news coming up in just a minute. Appreciate Carrie Lukas joining the show. Again, Independent Women's Forum. If you want to find that on social media, find their websites, find ways to be involved, empowering ourselves. I don't care if you're a woman or a man or #other. But we need to empower ourselves individually. As an individual, that's what it's all about. And that's what they've done to show the conservative response for what feminism really should look like. Because it's very difficult to actually show what real activism, what real individualism, what real liberty, what real feminism looks like. And it's the choice that you have to make your own choices. If you want to stay at home and take care of the family because that's what drives you, because you want to be that homemaker and you want to be that wife and you want to be that mother, then all the power to you. You be the best darn mother and wife that you can possibly be. If you want to be that head CEO and you don't want that family, you want to go do your own thing, all the power to you. You have that prerogative. You have that choice. And only in the United States do you have that choice. So all these progressives that think the world's unfair, to think that the feminist movement is only if you wear the pink hats and show your gender while you tell people not to judge you based on your gender, you should look at the rest of the world and see how they're judged. You should look and see how fair the rest of the world actually is. It's really not. That's the point I'm getting at. Bottom of the hour news coming up when we come back. We'll open up lines to you, whatever's on your mind. We have a few different issues to address. The latest with the immigration debate at the federal level, along with the advertising with the NFL. This has popped back up yet again. We'll get the latest on that and more. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM. Stay here.
Fastest growing radio show in Kansas.
What? How's he do that?
That's what I'm talking about.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up the show today. It is a Wednesday. We appreciate you hanging out with us wherever you may be with the flagship here on KQAM's airwaves, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, along with KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard. Let's start off a morning right, shall we? Open lines to you for the last half hour. Thanks again to Carrie Lukas, president of the Independent Women's Forum, on the show in the last half hour. 36 minutes past the hour, 721-8255-721-TALK. Let's start it off right with a phone call, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. It's Pam.
Oh, hey, Pam. How are you today?
Well, I had to chime in on this one, you know.
Absolutely. I'm glad that we were able to get her on. It took a while to get her scheduled, but she was great, really great and knowledgeable on the issue of what feminism really should look like.
Absolutely. And I never really have known what that word is supposed to mean. It just kind of sounded weird to me. And I grew up in the 60s and the 70s. I was there at the first ERA protest, and I never did know what that was all about except burning our bras.
And that was fun. Yeah.
It was a blast.
That was fun.
Yeah, I went there. I thought, hey, man, these lunatic liberals always throw a great protest, and you could ask anyone there. They wouldn't have known why they were there.
Of course
they
not.
were just,
it was a party and they wanted to show up.
Partying.
Yeah, it's a party and they want to show up. And that's the progressives. I have to admit, the progressives have found a really great way of getting people active by not making them understand what they're fighting for with necessarily a message, but saying, hey, you get to be creative, making signs. You get to do whatever the heck you want to, show off and have some fun. And boy, I tell you what, people show up. Conservatives, we're a little more straight suited that way, and we try and actually show up for a message, which is much more difficult to get people to say, yeah, I'm going to show up for that.
Yeah, and we're focused on what we're trying to get accomplished. It seems like, but it all through my life, and I've been to lots of protests and things, and all I've ever gotten out of this is no one wants equal rights. We already have that.
Oh, exactly.
Under the Constitution.
Right.
We want special rights. It's like this hate crime bill, the stuff. That one always really bothered me because, to me, all crime is hateful.
Oh, exactly. All crime is...
if it's against me, it's even more hateful. But, the law shouldn't change just because it's against me instead of you.
Well, and we need to remember, we need to focus back on the individual. It can't be the group think. It can't be the class warfare because you're rich or you're poor. It can't be because you have dark skin or white skin. It can't be because you have certain gender, this or that or the other. It needs to be about the individual. Pam, I love it. I want to take another phone call here in just a minute, but I appreciate the phone call because you're absolutely right. The word feminism itself, what does that actually mean when it comes to women's rights? Scott Stiles swinging in from the sports studio as well. It helps if I turn on your mic.
Let's try it again. Good morning,
let's try that again. Good morning, sir.
Good.
I had to get you in here for a minute. I know that you guys are doing your thing.
Yeah.
But I had to ask you, I saw this story, and you saw this as well. I'm sure you guys have been talking about it. NFL censored veterans organizations anti-protest from Super Bowl program.
What happened was the MVets wanted to run an ad that they've already ran in the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. They ran the same ad in the program for the National Hockey League All-Star Game. So they wanted to run the Super Bowl. And all it is a picture of a veteran, a World War II veteran, saluting the flag, and it says #PleaseStands. At the bottom of this ad is a link that you can go donate monies or whatever, support the veterans that have fought for this country in need. That's what it is.
That's all it is.
And the NFL says, no way.
You're not allowed to.
And I'm pissed because what you've allowed players all year long to discredit the national anthem, to do your protests. And so does that mean that there will be no ads in there for Black Lives Matter, for domestic violence, for child abuse, any
type of movement?
Yeah, anything. There better not be, because these are guys. And I just got a great message from a gentleman who, and I want to read this real quick. This gentleman is going to the Super Bowl, by the way. He won tickets for life to the Super Bowl. Lyle Rand is
tickets
his
for
name.
life.
Yes.
Wow.
Says, good morning, Scott. I love to call into your show. I've been listening about this subject on your show all day. And he goes, this decision hurts me to no end. I lost a family member to this country. My father was in the Korean War and killed. I lost my baby brother. I lost my father who was in the Korean War. I'm sorry. His grandfather was killed in the war. I lost my baby brother while he was serving in the Marine Corps for this country. He goes, it's really tough to take your 70-year-old mother to a funeral home when they call you and ask you to come identify the body. There's no mother or father should have to witness their son's body after he's been lost to this country representing and fighting for our freedom. Ask Pat Tillman and his family what they thought. Maybe all these people that are making these horrific decisions should have to go to war and fight for our country.
They will not. It's been aired, as you mentioned, on the championship games of every other sport.
Every other sport except NFL said no.
The NFL said no.
And this is a commemorative program that has tons of ads. It has a history of the Super Bowl, MVPs, teams that have participated in the first 51. This is Super Bowl 52. And it has the pictures of each individual player participating. And then it has tons of ads in it.
Sure.
It's a $15 program that most people buy to say, hey, I was at the Super Bowl.
Right.
And they put it in a bag somewhere. I mean, the NFL is charging $30,000 for this ad. They said, no problem. Here's your check. Oh, we can't put that in.
We can't put that on there. I was this close. I have not watched a single NFL game all year. I was this close to saying, you know what? I'm a Patriots fan. I enjoy the Patriots. Maybe I'll watch the Super Bowl for the commercials. Not going to do it.
People are fired up. People are already saying on the Sports Talk side, not watching this damn game, not worth my time.
Wow. I appreciate you giving an update on that one.
So that's the clarity of that.
That's the clarity of that. That's a very frustrating situation to be in.
Unreal.
Not even the fact of, hey, you know what? We have other messages like you mentioned. I'm sure that there's going to be a Me Too movement commercial on there.
Yeah.
Domestic abuse, sexual harassment. We need to be aware of these things.
This is the only league that the commissioner has not stepped forward. By the way, the NFL commissioner is making $40 million a year. He gets use of a private jet whenever he wants, and he has medical benefits for life for he and his family. And he will He had some little slappy down the hall that has a communications degree. He said he's the director of communications for the NFL, saying we will not allow this. The commissioner has not stepped forward, but yet Adam Silva from the NBA said before the season, not one NBA player will kneel. You will stand for the national anthem, or you will not be in this league.
The ratings are continuing to plummet for the NFL, aren't they?
16% down from last year in the playoffs right now.
There it is, 16%. Yeah. Scott Stiles, appreciate that, my friend. Had to get that on there. That's again, I know it's a week or so out from the Super Bowl, and I was that close to watching it. Not going to happen now, especially after saying, yeah, you know what, you're a veterans organization saying please stand for the flag out of respect. You can choose not to do so, but just our message of please doing so, and yeah, not going to allow it to actually be on the NFL when it's played on every other championship game of every other athletic event in the country. Shows the priorities of the NFL. 316-721-8255. Let's go back to the phone. Shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
It's Wallace.
Wallace, what's going on, sir?
So I'm gonna fold two issues into one.
Okay.
You're talking about women's rights.
Yep.
And what's kind of interesting is the NFL lets them put the little pink ribbons on their helmet, but they won't let the veterans. Well, there's a right a woman has that the veterans don't.
Sure. There you go.
So there's that. But you're thinking about this women's right thing. what right do I have as a man that a woman doesn't? I've read the Constitution. They have every single individual right that I have.
You know, it's funny you actually mentioned that. I saw a video, I don't know if you saw this on social media or online, but this woman who had shorter hair wanted to try and prove that there was male privilege, just like white privilege in society, wanted to prove that there was male privilege, and she cut her hair short, she slicked it back, she put on a suit like a guy and staged herself as a man and tried to get a job and started to go into society and tried to prove that there was male privilege over women in society. And by the end of her experiment, her social experiment, she came back and said, wow, men have crazy responsibility. They work crazy hard. They do all these crazy things, and we do as women as well. But holy cow, no, there's no such thing as male privilege over women. And they have different responsibilities, and they're just as tough as women's. And we need to respect men a lot more for this, because I tried to prove it and I couldn't come out with that solution at the end.
Yeah, and this is what just baffles me is, these feminists, and I'm not talking about, women that truly seek to be treated equal. I'm talking just the radical feminists, the bra burners.
Sure.
They don't understand that you can be different and still be equal.
Mm-hmm.
But they also believe that it's, like with Hillary Clinton, it's a woman's turn to be president. Like somehow... They don't believe, they don't trust the people.
Who cares about the policies?
Turn.
It's the fact that it's their turn. So just whatever she believes, we'll just go along with.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I watched my mom and my dad, and I got to tell you, even though we were a patriarchal family, I got to tell you, she's the power behind the throne.
Oh, absolutely. Behind every great guy is the master in the back, which is the woman that's directing him on what to actually do. Look, and if you want to take it from the religious perspective, you can say that, God wanted man and woman to be as one, as a whole and complete as one. So that way the male completes the female with the things she can't do, and the female completes the man with things that he can't do. And they both have their attributes, and together they are whole as one. And that's the whole purpose of society. Not to say that one's better at something or another, and how dare that's unfair. We need to make it fair. It's just that we're better at different things on each side of the aisle.
I'm with you. And if any of your listeners are feminists, if one of them could call in and tell me what right I have as a man that a woman doesn't, and keep in mind that both the Obama administration and the Clinton campaign, it was proven and exposed that these progressive liberal, they all paid women substantially less than their male counterparts. Perhaps maybe they can start cleaning up their own mess before they want to come make a mess and tell me to clean up mine.
Maybe Bernie Sanders can start paying his women interns a little bit better on that sense as well. Wallace, I appreciate it, my friend. I want to take another phone call. Great points. That's the question. What privilege does one gender have over another right now, when we're not supposed to have special powers over one another, but we're supposed to be unified as one? And I'm not talking about marriage here. I'm just talking about ability. That men can do things women can't, women do things that men can't, and when they work together, then you have the whole unison all together in one happy little couple. Let's go back to the phones again, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, happy hump day. It's Myron.
What's going on, sir? How are you?
Well, tomorrow's meeting of the Republican Assembly getting a little more interesting. There's some rumors going around that the city already made up its mind to level Century 2 and build something else.
I heard about that, and how there's some conversation back and forth, and I don't know the in-depthness of the discussions, but what they're going to do with Century 2, and it's going to be an interesting conversation. Now, that's what you guys are going to be doing at the Kansas Republican Assembly tomorrow, is talking about the future of Century 2, so that'll be a fun conversation.
Yeah, and we were told, since they stood us up twice in the past, we were told that nothing would be done until after they met with us.
Okay, well, that's
good. Well, it is if they have not gone ahead and put together all the plans in, because people need input, and this is the only time I've known of that the city has asked for public input directly.
Sure.
So I'm just a little concerned. Here I asked the president. I said, "Now, you got assurances from the mayor that they won't stand us up again?" And we were told, "Oh, no, they won't take any action. They want public input."
Very interesting. Well, that'll be great, and we'll continue to remind individuals about that one. Myra and I appreciate it with the Kansas Republican Assembly tomorrow. John D'Angelo, by the way, going to be speaking at the Kansas Republican Assembly tomorrow. We'll have more information on that throughout the day and tomorrow as well. So stay tuned in for that. Lots of information all across the board. It's Open Line C for the last few minutes of the show. We'll take one more break, wrapping up the program. It is the Voice of Reason on a Wednesday. Stay here.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Still thinking of the parties that go on at the protest, and that's really what it is. Pam brought up a really good point with that. When the protest, the bra burnings that happened back in the day, the holding up the signs today and the wearing the pink hats, they do it just for the entertainment, for the attention. It's just having fun, going to a party. If you notice, young kids today, the millennials, when they actually want to be active and they want to go do something, it's all about having fun and having the party. That's really all it is. Conservatives, maybe that's what we should start doing. Well, I tell you what, you want to talk about parties, go to a college Republican meeting. Just saying. 721-8255-721-TALK. How do we get conservatives to rally the activists into wanting to show up for things and have fun doing it? Now, it's funny, we're weird. We're dorks. You and I being the conservatives, we're the dorks because we get our pleasure and our entertainment out of showing up and fighting for a cause. We wave the American flag. Sometimes we have a little fun with maybe how we can dress up with the American flag and how we can wear the, Uncle Sam outfit or the George Washington outfit, or we can have a little fun that way because we're dorks like that. We're nerds. And then when someone gets up on the stage and the podium and starts quoting the Constitution, I mean, that's just it right there. Done. I mean, that's like the high school kid that got to kiss the girl for the first time and you're just in heaven and your head's swimming and you don't know what you're feeling. That's us at a political rally when we hear someone talk about the Constitution and wave the American flag. Done right there. End of story. We're in love, baby. And that's what we're all about. The Democrats, they don't care. The progressives, hey, we're going to protest Donald Trump. All right, cool. We're going to protest Donald Trump. What are we going to protest? I don't know. So wear the pink hat and make up a nice sign. Kill Donald Trump. I saw some of the signs say, women's rights. We hate Governor Brownback. Give us the choice. Give us the free whatever. Give us this. Give us that. And not just women. Men were there as well just to have fun with that because, hey, there's women that are very loose there that want to show off things and just say, hey, I'm a woman and hear me roar. Of course, guys are going to show up to that. The ones advocating for the lack of sexual assault are showing up to see the topless women try and burn their bras because they think it's entertainment value. That's the progressive agenda right there. That's what they believe in. They don't care. And that's what's led to the destruction of the Democratic Party, to be honest with you. The leaders of it know that. The leaders of it know that if you have the entertainment to building the Coliseum to be a little bit bigger with more entertainment, then who cares what your agenda is and what policies you're advancing, as long as the masses are happy and content. As long as the entertainment value is there, they don't care. They'll activate, they'll fight for you, they'll defend you, they'll vote for you, they'll continue to keep you in office as long as you distract the masses in an entertaining way. We're going to stand up and we're going to fight for something. Show up in your pink hats and have really cool creative signs, and then you'll be an activist. What are we fighting for? It doesn't matter. Just show up and I'll say some really cool words and people will be happy about it. That is what the progressives have done. They've created that mentality. They've created that world to where they feel like they're activists. They feel like they're doing something, and they're just pawns in the elitist progressives mindset. They're the pawns to promote an agenda that harms them in the end, but they don't care. They're having fun doing it. They love being able to go to that rave and have the glow-in-the-dark stuff and burn the bras and wear the pink hats and do all this stuff because they like that because it's fun, it's entertaining, and they get the attention that they're striving for. They get the attention that they're needing. While the people organizing it, they know that, and they're just sitting back saying, bravo. You've helped me in my cause be able to create more legislation, more regulation, and more control over you, but as long as you're having fun, I'll let you continue to have fun. There's a big difference between a conservative rally and a progressive rally, and that's really the biggest difference right there. As always, this is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some darn reason. There's just not enough of it to go around. This is the Voice of Reason. Have a great day, everybody.